Chosen one, heaven has interrupted your timeline. This is not your imagination. This is not another motivational speech. And this is certainly not an algorithm accident. God sent 2 angels by name, by order, by fire to where you are right now. Their wings are not flapping in confusion. They are not looking for another. They are standing over you in formation, in position, and on assignment. This is a divine moment sealed in the spirit realm and breaking through into your now. You don't have hours. You have 21 minutes. Not to panic, but to respond. You've been wrestling with shadows you couldn't name. Doubts that grew louder than your dreams. Sleep that never restored you. But heaven saw the breaking point, and God, who is rich in mercy, paused everything else in glory to say, "Go, get my child, get the one I marked before time, the one the world rejected, but I called by name. Chosen one." You were not just going through it. You were being hunted. Your light has always drawn warfare. You felt the shaking, the internal earthquakes, the silent cry in your room at night where your body was still but your soul screamed. And now, the angels have arrived. They did not come to comfort your confusion. They came to end it. One, to pull you out. The other to point you forward. They stand by your side now, not visible to the eye, but undeniable in spirit. One holds a sword that has never lost a battle. The other carries a scroll sealed with your next instructions. Listen carefully. Your soul has 21 minutes to respond with obedience. Note, delay. Not "I'll think about it." Because spiritual assignments don't wait for natural hesitation. There are windows that close, doors that shut if not entered. This is one of them. This message is divine, time-sensitive material, and God knows the exact pressure you're under. That's why He didn't send motivation. He sent rescue. Paul reminds us in Ephesians 2. Luke, God raised us up with Christ and seated us with Him in the heavenly realms. This is not hype. This is a repositioning. The angels didn't come to inspire you. They came to shift you. And in this divine encounter, there's one thing they're waiting for. Your yes. Not a fake one. Not a yes. But not a yes laced with fear. But the surrender that splits the heavens open. The kind of yes that angels respond to immediately because it signals faith in motion. Let your spirit understand this. Heaven doesn't do repeat requests. This moment will not return in the same form. The pain you've endured, the misunderstandings, the betrayals, they weren't signs of rejection. They were evidence that you are chosen, destined, marked, protected. The enemy would not have tried to bury you alive if you weren't carrying something that terrified hell. You were never overlooked. You were hidden. Hidden until the appointed time. And this is that time. This message finds you at a crossroads. Heaven is watching. Angels are present. Hell is nervous. And your spirit knows this is the turning point. Now is the time to rise. Not later. Not next week. Right now. God's chosen one. Type 777 in the comments as a prophetic act, acknowledging that you heard heaven, and you are answering back. Like, comment, and share this message. Someone else's 21 minutes might depend on your obedience. This is your rescue. Don't let 21 minutes turn into 21 years of regret. The angels are here. You were moments from collapse. And not just physical collapse, the kind where your knees give way. No, this was deeper. A collapse of hope, a crumbling of purpose. You know the kind. That heavy stillness where even breathing feels like betrayal. You had come to the edge. You were staring into the abyss of what's the point, and the lie whispered that no one would notice if you disappeared. But heaven noticed, before your first tear hit the pillow. The throne room was already aware. Your spirit's silent scream thundered louder than a million prayers spoken aloud. And while people misread your silence as distance, heaven read it as warfare. You weren't giving up, you were being targeted. The enemy knew what you were carrying. That's why the attacks came so early, so constant, so strategic. Emotional warfare, financial pressure, the sudden weariness with no physical explanation. The doors that almost opened only to slam shut in your face. It wasn't bad luck. It was a spiritual assassination attempt. But grace said not yet. Heaven never promised the chosen would be spared the fire, but you were promised survival. As we read in Isaiah 43, when you walk through fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. And God made sure that what was meant to consume you became the catalyst that awakened you. He dispatched 2 angels when the clock hit, a moment only he could see, because the timeline of your life was about to fracture. You were about to make a decision that didn't seem dramatic on the outside, but in the spirit realm, it would have altered everything. A yes to the wrong thing, a silence when heaven required a roar. A small compromise that would have opened a massive door to darkness, but God stepped in, and he didn't send a lightning bolt. He didn't shout from the clouds. He sent 2 messengers wrapped in light, forged in glory, and branded with your name. You didn't see them, but you felt the shift. The way your spirit suddenly became restless, how your usual distractions felt empty. The rising awareness in your chest that something is different, urgent, divine. It's not your imagination. It's angelic movement. Heaven has paused the normal patterns around you. Conversations seem off. People seem distant or unusually intense. You can't explain the agitation or the tears that seem to come from nowhere. That's because the spiritual climate has changed. You're in the middle of divine intervention, and your human senses are catching up to what your spirit already knows. In this moment, God is proving that he is not only the God of the mountain, but also the God of the brink. He waits until you're at the threshold of collapse, and instead of letting you fall, he interrupts the fall. That's where you are now, in the space between destruction and destiny, held in suspension by mercy. You were going to walk away from your calling, from your hope, from the path that once made your heart burn with purpose. And maybe you convinced yourself it was noble. Maybe you thought it was maturity. But deep down, you knew you were surrendering, not out of peace, but out of exhaustion. That's why heaven didn't send sympathy, it sent strength. These angels didn't come to comfort your apathy, they came to resurrect your passion, because you were about to shut down. And had you done it, it would have taken years to recover what you would have forfeited in seconds. Don't downplay the weight of what you've survived. Don't act like it wasn't a war. You faced shadows that tried to bury you. You fought suicidal thoughts with scripture. You warred against discouragement with nothing but a whisper of hope. And still, you remained. You are here, breathing, listening, alert in spirit. That is not weakness. That is warrior blood. That is divine preservation. And God doesn't preserve what he plans to discard. He only keeps alive what he intends to anoint. You weren't meant to fall apart. You were meant to fall into alignment. And that is exactly what this moment is. Alignment. Not perfection. Not fake joy. But divin alignement. the kind that sets your spirit back in place, your thoughts back in truth, your purpose back in motion. So pause. Let the angels finish their assignment. You don't need to perform. You don't need to explain. You don't need to beg. They already know the coordinates. They're not guessing where to go. They came straight to your soul's address. The first one is already unwrapping the lies that had become your truth. Lies like you're behind. You're unworthy. You missed it. Each one being cut at the root and replaced with heaven's perspective. You're right on time. You were always chosen. What God starts, He finishes. The second angel is preparing your instructions, not generic steps, but exact ones. Where to go, what to release, who to disconnect from. This isn't about hype. It's about holiness. The kind that costs you your comfort but unlocks your crown. You're still here because you are still chosen. And God doesn't change His mind about those He anoints. Even when you feel weak, especially when you feel weak, collapse didn't come because heaven came first. These angels were not randomly selected. They are not nameless beings with no history in your life. They were sent because they know you, assigned to your journey before you even knew what a journey with God meant. These angels aren't strangers to your struggle. They've watched from heaven's edge every time you almost didn't make it. And now, they are here by divine command. One carries your name, not a version of your name, not the nickname others gave you, but the name God gave you in the Spirit, the one spoken over you before you were formed in your mother's womb. These angels are not carrying weapons of warfare alone. They are carrying your identity. Because it's not just an attack on your future, it's an assault on who you are. The enemy's greatest strategy wasn't just to block your destiny, it was to confuse your identity, to make you forget who you are, to bury you under labels broken, lazy, unworthy, forgotten. But those labels were never yours. The angels came to return what the lies tried to steal: your spiritual name, your heavenly assignment, your original blueprint. In the heavenly realms, there are no generalizations. There is clarity, there is precision, and when heaven acts, it does so with perfection. You were not one among many when this rescue mission was issued. You were the one, not just a number, not just another struggling believer, but the one who carries something inside that's too important to lose. Chosen one. This moment is not about motivation. It's about remembrance. You are being reminded of the truth that has been echoing in heaven long before you heard it here. You are called. You are known. And you have been assigned backup, divine, powerful, unstoppable backup. The angels didn't just descend to block demonic interference. They descended to reactivate your spirit. They're bringing back clarity. They're wiping off the fog of confusion that has been clinging to your vision for too long. You've been moving in circles, unsure of whether you're making progress or wasting time. But that ends now. One of the first things the angel does is hand you a mirror, not of glass, but of truth. Not the mirror of man's opinion, not the mirror of trauma, not the mirror of rejection, but the mirror of identity. When you see yourself through heaven's mirror, the illusions break. You remember who you are. This is why the enemy fought so hard to distract you. He didn't want you to see this mirror. He didn't want you to remember, because the moment you do, you become dangerous again. You start walking with your shoulders straight. Your prayers shift dimensions. Your praise becomes warfare. It's no coincidence that the very season where you felt most abandoned was the same season where heaven was preparing this intervention. This isn't damage control. This is a divine appointment. These angels didn't come to convince you. You've already felt the confirmation in your spirit. This is not new information. This is ancient truth reawakening. The second angel is a courier, a messenger from God's own throne. In his hands is a scroll, sealed with spiritual fire, your next instructions. Not vague someday dreams, but specific orders for this season. Because heaven is not confused about where you are or what's next. God is not guessing, He's guiding. And here is what you must understand. The scroll is sealed until you say yes. Not just a verbal yes, a full surrender. That quiet moment where your soul whispers, "I'm ready." That's what unlocks it. That's when the next layer of your calling unfolds. Until then, the angels wait, ready, but restrained by your will. Heaven always honors your will, but right now, your spirit is being given clarity so your will can finally align. This is not a manipulation. This is mercy. God didn't just let you wander and then judge you for being lost. He sent help. He sent the very assistance you didn't know how to ask for. You've seen glimpses of this your whole life. Those moments when you should have fallen but didn't. When the car should have crashed. When the deal should have failed. When the depression should have won. But somehow grace kept breaking through. That was them. Assigned from the beginning. Guarding the treasure inside you. This is what's at stake. Not just your comfort or peace, but the generations connected to your obedience. Because when a chosen one rises, chains fall off families. Curses are broken. Legacies shift. And hell knows it. That's why the resistance got stronger. The closer you got to clarity, the enemy always intensifies his attack when heaven gets louder. But today, clarity wins. Truth wins. Identity wins. You win. You don't need to figure everything out. The angels didn't come to dump information. They came to transfer instruction. One step at a time. One act of obedience at a time. And even as you hear this, they're moving. Lifting burdens off your mind. Opening your ears to spiritual direction. Breaking the lies that made you believe you had to do this alone. You were never alone. Even when you doubted, even when you pulled away, even when you cursed your own reflection, heaven stayed close. Because when God marks someone, He doesn't unmark them when they struggle. He stays. He fights. He sends help. And now help is here. You are being restored to your spiritual identity. You are being reminded of the name written in heaven. And you are being given fresh instructions to walk boldly in your next assignment. This is not just encouragement, it's resurrection. Type, "I remember now." This is more than a reaction. It is a spiritual declaration. When you type these words, you're confirming that your divine identity has just been restored. You are pushing back against spiritual amnesia and pulling down the holy memory of who you truly are in God's plan. These simple words carry the power to awaken a soul that had forgotten its origin. There was a snare set for your soul. It didn't come dressed in obvious evil. It wasn't dripping with darkness. No, it was subtle, calculated, designed specifically for you. It looked like relief. It felt like comfort. It even wore the mask of peace. But in the spirit realm, it was a trap, a lure, bait soaked in deception and positioned right where your wounds were still healing. The enemy doesn't waste effort on those who are already lost in confusion. He sets his sights on the chosen, the called, the ones carrying breakthrough for others. That's why the attack on your life felt personal, because it was. Every demonic assignment against you was crafted based on your blueprint. What once looked like coincidence now reveals itself as strategy. Repeated setbacks, relational sabotage, delays that drained your hope, all orchestrated by an enemy who feared what would happen if you ever realized the full weight of your calling. But heaven was not idle. While darkness was plotting your destruction, God was writing a counter-narrative. And this moment, this message, this exact intersection in your journey, it's not inspiration, it's rescue. Two angels didn't just show up to fight. They came to undo what was done, to reroute what was detoured, to lift what was placed on you by hands that didn't belong in your story. You were being stalked spiritually, not because you were weak, but because your awakening would trigger a chain reaction in the kingdom. And Satan knows something that many believers forget. A chosen one in full clarity is a walking threat. A threat to cycles, a threat to bondage, a threat to strongholds that have stood for generations. That's why you didn't just battle temptation, you battled identity distortion. Not just hardship, but accusations. The kind that made you question whether you ever heard God clearly in the first place. But even when your ears were blocked by disappointment, heaven never stopped speaking. And now, angels stand by your side, not just to fight demons, but to clear the fog. There are realms in the spirit that only open after you survive certain traps. You're standing on the other side of one now. You made it through, not because you were strong, but because grace was stronger. And that grace, it's still working. It didn't just get you through the danger, it's leading you into destiny. This is why you've felt the agitation in your soul. You've tried to return to normal. You've tried to make peace with just getting by, but something won't let you settle. That's not restlessness, it's divine resistance. Heaven refuses to let you blend in with what you were called to break out of. God is not in the business of barely rescuing. He doesn't send angels to patch wounds. He sends them to reverse damage. That's what is happening right now. The trap that should have swallowed you whole is now being turned into a testimony. What was meant to destroy you is now evidence that you were preserved for something higher. You may have thought you were weak for struggling, but you were actually targeted because of your strength. The enemy doesn't go after empty vessels. He attacks what carries glory. And you, chosen one, you are filled with it, even if you haven't seen it clearly yet. As you sit in this moment, something is being dismantled in the spirit. Words spoken against you, curses unleashed through jealousy, doubts seeded by past trauma. All of it is unraveling, and not because you earned it, but because heaven intervened. Because God made a decision that this would not be your end, but your emergence. You are not broken beyond repair. You are being restored beyond recognition. And what is coming next will not resemble what you've been through. The battle didn't come to define you. It came to refine you, to expose the gold that can only be found through the fire. You've seen glimpses of what's inside of you, flashes of purpose, waves of discernment, sudden downloads of wisdom that didn't come from books. That wasn't random. It was evidence. Evidence that you are a vessel of impact. And that's why the trap was set. To silence you before you could fully speak. To paralyze you before you could fully move. To make you doubt what God declared when He created you. But the trap failed. And in its failure, the truth is rising. You are being recalibrated, redirected, released. No longer bound by the subtle lies that tried to convince you you were ordinary. You never were. And now, that reality is rising like fire in your bones. The angels didn't come to deliver a message. They came to unlock what was buried. In this silence, a shift is happening. Not emotional, not fleeting, but foundational. Your spirit is realigning. Your mind is being renewed. You are standing taller, even without moving. Because once a chosen one survives the trap, the territory once occupied by fear becomes holy ground. Let the Spirit speak what words cannot. Let your heart agree even before your mind catches up. You were not swallowed by the darkness because light was always stronger. You didn't fall into the trap because heaven was already there. In the spirit realm, time moves differently. What feels like waiting to you has been warfare in the heavens. What seems like delay on earth has actually been divine positioning. Every closed door, no, you didn't understand. Every relationship that collapsed without warning, it wasn't coincidence. It was timing. And this is the moment heaven has been waiting for. Chosen one. The 21 minutes were not given as a countdown to frighten you. They were given as a window. A sacred opening in the spirit where heaven and earth align for supernatural acceleration. You're not running out of time. You're being called into it. Into divine timing. Into right positioning. Into the rhythm of the spirit. There is something about divine moments that carry weight. You can feel it in your chest, like eternity is pressing in on the present. That's what this is. The angels were not sent early or late. They were dispatched at the moment where your surrender would carry the most impact. And they're not waiting for your perfection. They're waiting for your permission. God does not override your will, but He overwhelms your doubt with presence. That's what's happening now. You may not see it in the natural, but the very air around you has shifted. What was once confusion is becoming clarity. What felt like chaos is beginning to part like a Red Sea before your eyes. Why now? Because something in you is ready. Not your confidence, not your energy, but your spirit. Even if your body is tired, your spirit is alert. Even if your mind has questions, your heart knows this is truth. You were made for this moment. And this moment is responding to your yes. It was declared in Luke 10. Shizyo, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. That's not a metaphor. That's a mantle. That's divine empowerment wrapped in scripture, spoken over your life whether you knew it or not. The angels were not sent to inspire, they were sent to activate. And activation comes through action, through response, through agreement. This is the kind of moment where obedience becomes the key to unlocking what has been waiting on the other side of your hesitation. This is where your faith steps out of the shadows. No more hiding. No more shrinking. The time for silence has ended. The time to be heard in heaven has come. And if this word has stirred something deep in you, if you felt the pull in your spirit and the fire in your bones, then stay close. Messages like this are not just words, they are appointments. Divine downloads that mark turning points in your spiritual timeline. Subscribe, not just for content, but for continuity. There is more. You are not alone in this awakening. Stay connected to the stream that carries what your spirit has been crying out for. And if you feel led, sow into this word, not out of compulsion, not out of pressure, but out of alignment. Giving doesn't buy your calling, it activates your agreement with it. When you place seed into the soil of revelation, you're saying, I recognize this moment, and I'm placing weight on what God is doing. Let every action become agreement. Let every response become declaration. You're not watching by accident. This isn't a replay. This is real-time alignment. A moment where your life shifts because your spirit said, yes. You've always known there was more. even when you couldn't explain it. Even when others didn't understand it, there was something in you, something holy, that refused to die. A dream that wouldn't quiet down. A vision that kept returning in the night. A weight you carried that you couldn't name, but couldn't release. That weight wasn't a burden. It was glory, waiting for the right time. And now, that glory is waking up. The angels haven't left. They're still here, watching, waiting, covering. They know you're closer than you've ever been to walking fully in what was spoken over you in eternity. The demonic trap has been exposed. The lie has lost its power. And the window remains open for now. Heaven doesn't need your performance, but it does require your participation. You are not who your past says you are. You are not what the pain tried to convince you of. You are who God says you are. And now, you are being reintroduced to yourself through heaven's eyes. So, if your spirit is still stirring, stay. Return. Watch again. Share this word with someone who's on the brink. Sometimes, a message doesn't just change a day, it rescues a destiny. And yours is too important to be left in silence. Let the heavens bear witness. You showed up when it mattered most. The first angel stands with authority, not only to protect, but to deliver. Not with soft words, but with the sword of the Lord drawn and burning. You can't see the blade, but your spirit has felt its edge, the tightness that has begun to loosen in your chest. The burden that began lifting even before the message was halfway done. That's not emotion. That's deliverance in motion. This angel has been waiting not for the right condition, but for your recognition. Deliverance isn't about religious performance. It's about spiritual agreement. You don't need to scream or shout or fall to the ground. What heaven is breaking off of you in this moment comes through alignment with truth. This angel was assigned to sever every spiritual chain wrapped around your destiny, chains of delay, cycles of guilt, the weight of words spoken by others that you unknowingly agreed with. All of it is being shattered. You may not know the exact moment the chains wrapped around you, but God does. And He sent this angel with precision to locate them, not generically, but specifically. The shame that clung to you from childhood, the fear that crept in after betrayal, the spiritual exhaustion that numbed you slowly. These weren't just feelings. They were symptoms of a silent bondage. Chosen one. This angel does not bring partial freedom. He brings total disruption to every agreement you ever made with lies. He comes armed with the authority of heaven and the mercy of the cross. Your pain doesn't scare Him. Your mess doesn't disqualify you. In fact, that's why He was sent. Because heaven saw what you couldn't even articulate, how you were functioning in fragments, smiling with a fractured soul, moving forward with chains still dragging behind you in the spirit. And now, the chain breaker is here. You may feel heat in your body, a weight lifting, tears welling, or maybe just silence. But even in silence, the work is happening. Because this angel doesn't need fanfare. He needs your surrender. Not the kind that's loud, but the kind that's true. Chains break when you say, "I'm done pretending." When your spirit stops hiding, when you admit that carrying it alone hasn't worked. The angel has no need to convince you. You already feel the invitation to let go. And as you release, He cuts. As we read in Isaiah 61, He has sent me to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners. That's not poetry. That's present reality. That's what's unfolding right now. This isn't about how long you've struggled. It's about how long heaven has waited to lift it off you. And it's happening now, not because you've earned it, but because you were never meant to carry it. What's breaking off of you may not be visible to others, but the spiritual shift is unmistakable. You'll speak differently, think differently, walk differently, not because you're trying harder, but because you've been unbound, and you will begin to notice the difference. The things that used to trigger you suddenly lose power. The voices that used to shake your confidence become quieter. The thoughts that once haunted you begin to fade. Deliverance is not always dramatic, but it is always definitive. Heaven knows when a soul says yes, and when yours does, the angel does what he came to do: cut, break, and remove what has been holding you down in the spirit. You don't need to fight for freedom. You just need to receive it. The sword is already drawn. The presence is already here. The chains are already weakening. You are not leaving this moment the same. And when you look back, you'll mark this as the shift. The hour you didn't expect, but the hour heaven had always prepared for. Type 444. Not just numbers. It is a prophetic acknowledgement that angelic deliverance has arrived, that chains are breaking, and you are stepping into a new alignment with heaven's timeline. Every number typed is a spiritual signal, your amen in visible form, a silent cry that says, "I know heaven came for me today." The second angel does not carry a sword. He carries sight. He comes not to destroy, but to unveil, not to fight, but to reveal. His presence is subtler, yet no less powerful. Where the first angel brings breaking, the second brings building. He's come to show you what comes next. For so long, you've been walking in a haze. You've been moving, but not seeing, hearing, but not understanding. There were days your body went through the motions while your soul waited in silence for clarity. That silence wasn't abandonment. It was preparation for this unveiling. Because what this angel carries cannot be seen with fleshly eyes. His mission is revelation, not of events, but of direction. He doesn't come with step-by-step instructions written in stone. He comes with divine illumination. He turns the light on in rooms of your spirit that have been dark and dormant. You don't just receive words, you gain vision. Vision for who you are. Vision for where you're going. Vision for why the war over your life has been so unrelenting. You see, revelation isn't just knowledge. It's supernatural insight. It bypasses logic and settles in your core like fire. It rearranges how you see yourself and others. And the second angel was assigned to do exactly that, to recalibrate your inner compass to match heaven's coordinates. God doesn't send revelation before he sends rescue. First, he pulls you out. Then he shows you where to go. That's the order of heaven. Because to give sight to someone still in chains is torment. But to the unbound, revelation is freedom. Even now, the angel is drawing near. He's unfolding what the enemy tried to bury. He's pointing to things in your life that once felt random but are actually clues. Divine breadcrumbs. Patterns heaven was painting that you couldn't see until now. Every major moment in your life, the pain, the silence, the impossible timing, it all starts to click. You begin to see how God was always there, how certain delays weren't denials but divine detours, how closed doors weren't rejection, but redirection. You feel the weight of confusion lifting, not because you understand everything, but because you finally trust the one who does. The angel is revealing where your next obedience must go. Not everywhere, just the next place, the next person, the next step, Revelation doesn't need to unfold the whole map. It only needs to show the next turn. And that's what he gives. You've been praying for clarity. But what heaven is giving is more than that. It's divine strategy. There are people connected to your next decision. There are open doors that won't appear until you move. This is why spiritual direction is so important. It activates heaven's alignment. And the second angel doesn't only point, he speaks. He whispers to your spirit the secrets of your assignment, not for others to hear, just for you. Intimate, exact, undeniable. What he speaks carries the weight of eternity, yet flows like peace. You've heard many voices in your life, some loud, some manipulative, some careless. But this voice is different. This voice quiets the others. It centers you. It roots you. It reminds you of promises you forgot you ever received. It breathes life into dreams you were ready to bury. It may feel like you're remembering, but in truth, you're finally seeing. Revelation often feels like remembering because your spirit knew the truth long before your mind caught up. This is the ministry of the second angel, to restore sight, not physical, but spiritual. Notvage, bud precise. And the precision is not always about tasks, it's about alignment, knowing where your heart should be, knowing where not to invest your time, knowing who is and isn't sent by God. He brings the grace to discern, not by logic, but by spirit. You'll start sensing things you never saw before. Red flags you used to ignore will stand out. Hidden motives will be exposed. Divine timing will become more obvious. And the fog that once made decision-making feel like torment will begin to lift. You're not stepping into busyness, you're stepping into alignment. And alignment always makes room for acceleration. Not rushed, but efficient. Not scattered, but synchronized. This angel is setting you on heaven's rhythm, the rhythm of grace, the beat of divine precision. Don't try to figure it all out at once. That's not what revelation requires. All it asks is response. The smallest step in the right direction unlocks the next, and with every act of obedience, the light grows stronger. You may not yet see the full picture, but you now hold the lamp for your feet, and the path ahead will unfold in sync with your yes. The second angel is not leaving. He walks with you until the next layer is revealed. Your eyes are opening, and you will never see the same again. The fiercest war you've ever faced wasn't outside you, it was inside your mind. Not every battle comes with visible enemies. Some arrive in the form of thoughts, whispers that sound like your voice, accusations that masquerade as reason, doubts that dress themselves as discernment. The enemy's most consistent battlefield has always been the mind, and for the chosen ones, it is the primary target. You've felt it, the swirl of thoughts that seem to come from nowhere. One moment, you're grounded. The next, you're questioning everything. Your decisions, your worth, your ability to hear God. That confusion isn't a byproduct of overthinking. It's a result of spiritual interference. When you carry a destiny like yours, clarity becomes a threat to darkness. So the enemy fights it. He floods your thoughts with noise. He uses past wounds like open windows, whispering doubt through them. What if you're not chosen? What if you've missed it? What if God's done with you? But the voice of the accuser always sounds like pressure without peace, urgency without clarity, panic without presence. Contrast that with the voice of the Spirit. It's steady. Even when it convicts, it comforts. Even when it corrects, it calms. God is not the author of confusion. He doesn't bombard your mind with spirals of uncertainty. When he speaks, even a hard truth feels like mercy. For months, maybe even years, your mind has been under siege. That's why you felt exhausted, even when physically rested. Why your creativity seemed to fade. Why making decisions felt like navigating fog. You weren't lazy. You were under attack. But the good news is this: what heaven reveals, heaven heals. And the mental warfare you've endured is now being confronted by divine truth. This isn't about thinking more positively. It's about replacing lies with truth. That's what's happening right now. Heaven is rewriting the script that's been running in the background of your thoughts. The script that said, "You'll never change. You're too far behind. You're too broken to be used." One by one, those lines are being erased. Not by effort, by encounter. This encounter, even now, the Spirit is sifting through the tangle of voices, not just silencing the enemy, but lifting your discernment, teaching you how to tell the difference. There is a difference between your voice, the voice of the enemy, and the voice of the Spirit. And when you learn that difference, confusion loses its grip. Clarity is returning. You'll find yourself thinking clearly, not just spiritually. Peace will begin to govern your inner world. You'll recognize quickly when a thought doesn't belong. You'll discern spiritual warfare faster. You'll respond with truth instead of reacting in fear. Paul writes in Romans 12:R, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." This is the battlefield, and this is where the transformation begins. It's not just about rebuking the enemy. It's about retraining the way you agree. Because every lie the enemy spoke had to get permission to stay. And often, that permission came through silent agreement. Through, "I guess this is just who I am." Through, "Maybe this is just my fate." But today, those agreements are being revoked. You are not too much. You are not too late. You are not disqualified. The war in your mind has been intense because the enemy couldn't touch your calling. So he tried to convince you to walk away from it yourself. That's always his strategy. Get the chosen one to cancel themselves. He can't remove your destiny. So he tries to make you believe you're unworthy of it. But truth is louder now. Not emotionally, but spiritually. You're remembering what was spoken over you. The prophetic words, the dreams, the promises that once felt unreachable are now beginning to feel inevitable. Why? Because your mind is being renewed. Your thoughts are aligning with heaven's rhythm. And that's when peace becomes your compass. The pressure to perform is lifting. The inner critic is falling silent. The fear of making the wrong move is being replaced with trust in God's guidance. This clarity is not temporary. It's foundational. You're building on truth now. Every decision that flows from this renewed mind will carry weight. Every word you speak from this place will carry authority. Because when your mind is aligned with heaven, your life becomes a vessel of God's strategy on earth. You're not going crazy. You're waking up. The darkness fought hard to keep you confused, but it failed. And now that your mind is free, your steps will follow. This is how destinies get reclaimed, not through drama, but through truth. Through one surrendered thought at a time. You're thinking differently now, and the path forward is becoming clearer by the moment. You need to know this. The rescue wasn't your idea. It wasn't your prayers that summoned heaven, though your prayers mattered. It wasn't your desperation that moved God, though he saw your tears. No, it was Jesus. Christ himself stood in the gap. He requested this intervention. He interceded for you when you didn't know how to speak. His blood cried out when your voice was silent. That's why the angels came. You weren't just noticed. You were advocated for. In the courts of heaven, your name was spoken, not in judgment, but in mercy. Not to remind heaven of your sins, but to reaffirm the covenant. You may not have seen it. You may not have felt it. But at the moment of greatest darkness, Jesus stepped in and said, "This one is mine, chosen one." Don't underestimate what that means. In the spiritual realm, intercession is warfare. It is defense. It is love in action. And when Jesus intercedes, nothing can block the rescue. Not demon, not decision, not delay. He doesn't plead weakly, he declares victoriously. The enemy had a file on you. Pages of accusations. Reasons why you should be left behind. Reasons why you didn't qualify. But the blood of Jesus spoke louder. It wasn't your effort that silenced the accuser, it was the cross. And now, the rescue mission is in motion. This is why the angels arrived with such force, because their orders came directly from the throne. This was not a suggestion, it was a command. Heaven does not take lightly the intercession of the Son. When he speaks, all of creation shifts. All of heaven stands. And you are the reason heaven stood still. Jesus knew exactly how to position you for this moment. He allowed you to come to the edge not to destroy you, but to show you how far grace would go. You thought you were slipping. He was holding. You thought you were forgotten. He was fighting. The quiet moments you spent, curled in confusion, weren't unseen. They were sacred, because he was there, always there. As we read in Hebrews 7, Arshawu, therefore he is able to save completely those who come to God through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. That's not just theology, it's personal history. Jesus has been interceding for you, not just once, continually. Every time you almost gave up, he stood in the gap. Every time you almost made a permanent decision based on temporary pain, he whispered, "Wait, not yet." And now you're here, still breathing, still listening, still chosen. The rescue was not initiated by desperation. It was triggered by intercession. That's why it feels deeper. That's why your spirit is trembling, even if your body is still. Something eternal is touching, something broken, and healing is happening in real time. You weren't just saved from destruction, you were preserved for purpose. And this purpose is being reignited right now. The things that used to bring you joy, the visions, the ideas, the passion are being restored, not forced, released. Jesus didn't just prevent your fall. He protected your future. He saw what was at stake and stepped in before the enemy could finish his plan. This isn't just grace, it's strategy. This isn't just rescue, it's recovery. Even now, the Holy Spirit is confirming what you already feel. The warmth, the stillness, the clarity. It's not emotional, it's spiritual. It's the evidence of divine intercession manifesting in real time. You're not imagining this shift. You're being repositioned by love. Not the love of man flawed and fickle, but the love of the Savior, the one who knew every flaw and still fought for you, the one who saw your hesitation and still said, "Send the angels." Chosen one, you are here because heaven refused to give up on you. Type, "He chose me." These words carry weight in the spirit. When you write them, you aren't just reacting, you're agreeing. You are aligning yourself with truth that darkness fought to keep you from knowing. You are saying, I see it now. I was never forgotten. I was chosen, covered, and called. Let this be your declaration. Let heaven and hell both witness your awakening. You've wondered, why me? Not in arrogance, but in honest confusion. Why did the battle target you so specifically? Why did the heaviness seem more relentless on your shoulders than on others? Why were your storms longer, your valleys deeper, your nights quieter? The answer is unsettling in its simplicity. Because you're chosen. The enemy does not exhaust his resources on those who pose no threat. He sends his fiercest attacks against the ones carrying the most dangerous anointing. And that's what you are, a threat. Not to people, to darkness, to cycles, to demonic blueprints passed down through generations. You are a walking disruption to everything hell has built in your bloodline. You've carried weight that was never yours. You've walked through seasons others didn't survive. And you questioned if maybe something was wrong with you. But the truth is, something has always been right with you. You've been marked, set apart, targeted because of the glory you carry. But now, the season of surviving is turning into a season of walking in that glory. You're not just called to endure, you're called to reign. And that transition is where most chosen ones get attacked. Because once you realize who you are, hell loses its grip. Once you understand your authority, delay loses its power. Once you step into identity, every lie loses its voice. This is why the fire was so intense. It was trying to burn away your revelation, trying to keep you too tired to remember who you are. But it failed, because inside the fire, something wholly awakened. And you're not leaving this fire empty. You're leaving it refined, chosen one. You are not just a survivor. You are a deliverer, one of the marked ones, a breaker of chains, a builder of altars, a restorer of foundations. You carry the answer to problems others have normalized. You are the interruption to the enemy's agenda. That's why you've been under pressure, because pressure reveals vessels, and heaven has revealed you. You may have felt overlooked, but you are actually being preserved, hidden for the appointed time, not ignored, protected. God did not allow certain doors to open because premature exposure would have destroyed your roots. But now the season has shifted, and what was hidden is being summoned. This is why the angels came, not just to save you, but to release you, to untie the spiritual ropes and say, now go, not in haste, in authority, in alignment. You're not stepping out aimlessly. You're stepping forward intentionally into the very places God has prepared for your voice, your hands, your heart. Isaiah 54:17 declares, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. That word isn't conditional, it's covenant. And you are walking in that covenant now. You will see fruit where you once only saw failure. You will walk with confidence where you once tiptoed through confusion. And your very presence will disturb environments that once drained you. Because when a chosen one awakens, everything changes. Don't underestimate the ripple effect of your yes. Your obedience carries weight. Your voice breaks silence. Your presence shifts atmospheres. And your alignment with heaven releases things not only for you, but for others. That's why staying connected matters. If this message is speaking to your spirit, if your heart is burning with a, this is me, don't just listen and leave. Stay connected to the flow of what God is releasing. Subscribe, not for content, but for clarity, for continuity. Because this is not a one-time word. It's a spiritual journey, and you're not meant to walk it alone. Share this word with someone who feels like they're drowning quietly. Someone who needs to remember, they're not crazy, they're called. You don't know who needs this fire to reach their spirit. Let God use your share to turn someone else's 21 minutes into their turning point. And if this word has resonated deeply, if it's confirmed what your spirit's been whispering in secret, consider sowing. Not for transaction, for agreement, for alignment. When you plant into a moment like this, you're not buying a blessing, you're anchoring your faith. You're saying, "This is holy ground, and I will not leave it unchanged." You are not here by chance. The precision of this timing is divine. You've been fighting battles others didn't see, but heaven did. And now, you are rising not just out of pain, but into purpose. This section marks a pivot, from warfare to walking, from surviving to sending, from wondering to knowing. And if you feel that holy shift inside, then you already know this is your moment. You've heard about God's mercy. You've seen traces of it in your life, those narrow escapes, those unexpected breakthroughs, those quiet nudges when you were about to fall too far. But what you may not fully realize is how close judgment came, not as punishment, but as consequence. As the natural end of prolonged resistance, you were walking a line, and heaven saw it. There comes a time in every chosen one's journey where mercy stands between them and the blade of consequence. A divine Pause. Not because God is weak in discipline, but because he is rich in compassion. You stood at that threshold. Whether you knew it or not, your next decision was being weighed in the courts of heaven. It wasn't just about sin. It was about surrender. You weren't being judged for struggling. You were being warned about hardening. There's a difference. God is patient with those who are broken, but he resists the proud. And pride isn't always arrogance. Sometimes it's silent refusal, the slow drift of later, Lord, the quiet rebellion of delayed obedience. And yet, instead of immediate judgment, heaven gave you a lifeline. Another moment, another chance. That's what this is. Not sentiment, not hype. A divine extension. You may think, but I haven't done anything terrible. Yet, in the spirit realm, rebellion isn't measured by public scandal. It's measured by the posture of your heart, every ignored prompting, every buried conviction. Every moment you said no with your silence, it was noted, not to condemn you, but to call you. Because when God calls a chosen one, he doesn't call once. He calls until the window closes, and though he is slow to anger, he is not indifferent to resistance. You were close, closer than you knew. The weight in your chest, the growing numbness, the hollow ache, all of it was a signal. You were not just tired, you were spiritually distant. You were being warned, gently at first, then more sharply, until finally, heaven drew a line and said, "Now, this is that moment. You are not here by chance. You're here because judgment was delayed for the sake of mercy. But mercy doesn't delay forever. When God extends his hand, it is both invitation and boundary. You are standing at the edge of both. The angels you've heard about, the ones sent to deliver and reveal, they were released not just as messengers, but as markers. They stand in time, as heaven's announcement, we are intervening before the window closes. You are still chosen, still called. But this moment is critical. Hebrews 10:26 warns us. If we deliberately keep on sinning, after we have received the knowledge of the truth. No sacrifice for sins is left. This is not about failing. This is about rejecting conviction, ignoring divine moments, dismissing sacred calls. And God has decided you cannot go another day unaware. You've been spared not because you've deserved it, but because you're necessary. Your story isn't just a recovery, it's a rescue for others. That's why you couldn't be left behind. That's why mercy stood in front of judgment and said, "Not yet." But now, that same mercy is saying, "Choose." This is not a threat. It's a truth. When God moves in divine timing, response must follow. The door that opens today may not open the same way tomorrow. The grace that covers now may step aside later. And it's not because God is unstable, it's because His timing is perfect. And your moment has arrived. You've cried for direction. You've prayed for clarity. This is it. There is no more confusion. No more delay. What you do next matters more than you realize. Not just for you, for generations tied to your obedience. And it's not too late. That's the beauty of mercy. It holds the door open, even when judgment is waiting. But it does not hold it open forever. This moment is precious because it is rare. You are not just being warned, you're being re-centered, brought back to the exact place where your calling began to dim, not to shame you, to reset you, to remind you that no amount of wandering can disqualify what God initiated unless you say no. There is still a yes in you, and heaven is listening. The angels are still waiting, not because they are slow, not because they are unsure, but because heaven does not override human will. That's the nature of divine partnership. God moves at the speed of your surrender. These angels, mighty in power and precision, remain still until you give the signal that unlocks movement. Your yes. They are poised in the spirit. One holds the final key to your current season. The other carries instructions only obedience can activate. They are not hindered by darkness, they're waiting for alignment. Your alignment. Because heaven will never force transformation on a reluctant heart. It will press. It will call. It will stir. But it waits for agreement. You may feel like your agreement is small, hesitant, late. But to heaven, it is everything. Even now, the atmosphere around you is pregnant with purpose. Something is waiting to be born, not a random opportunity, but the next version of you, the one who walks free, the one who doesn't shrink, the one who knows, I am chosen, not because I am perfect, but because God has decided I will not be wasted. You've asked for clarity. This is it. You've prayed for confirmation. It has come. Now heaven waits not for emotion, but for decision. The angels are waiting for your will to catch up with your spirit. You already know the truth. That's why your heart is beating faster. That's why there's fire in your chest. The resistance you feel is not hesitation. It's the last line of fear trying to stop you from stepping through the door of deliverance. But you are stronger now. You've seen too much to pretend you don't hear this call. You've come to the end of self-reliance. And that is where surrender begins. The angels do not flinch. They don't grow impatient. They're eternal beings. But their activation is tied to your obedience. And when you say yes, even silently, even weakly, they move with power that shifts the atmosphere. They're not just waiting to help you. They're waiting to walk with you, to guard, to guide, to protect what God is birthing in you right now. Heaven has always moved through agreement, from Genesis to Revelation. Every miracle followed a moment of consent. Mary said, "Be it unto me according to your word." Isaiah declared, "Here I am, send me." And Jesus himself submitted in Gethsemane with the words, "Not my will, but yours be done." That's what the angels are listening for, not fancy prayers, not perfect plans, just one real surrender. You've waited long enough. You've circled the same question too many times. And the enemy would love for you to keep stalling, because every minute of hesitation delays a breakthrough already scheduled. This is more than a personal decision. This is a divine intersection. And the spirit realm is standing still, not in fear, but in awe, because something sacred is about to be unlocked. The angels are still waiting, but not forever. There are windows that do not stay open indefinitely. This is one of them. Say yes. Not because you're certain. Say yes because you're chosen. Say yes, not from confidence, but from conviction. Mark this moment with 144. Not as a comment, but as a covenant. This number isn't just symbolic, it's spiritual. When you write 144, you're echoing heaven's order over your life. It's your quiet roar in the spirit, saying, "I align, I surrender, I rise." The angels are watching, not for noise, but for response. Let 144 be your signature of agreement in this divine hour. You've made mistakes, darkened detours, stayed silent when you should have spoken, run when you should have stood. You felt the sting of regret, the weight of missed opportunities, the ache of "I should have known better." And yet, here is the truth that hell hoped you'd never grasp. Your calling cannot be cancelled. You were not chosen because of perfect decisions. You were chosen in spite of them. God didn't wait for your record to be clean. He declared his purpose over your life while your hands were still shaking. The enemy hoped shame would convince you that the anointing lifted, that the assignment expired. But heaven's gifts are not like man's promises. They do not break under pressure. The calling remains. Every delay, every detour, every season of disobedience, it didn't delete your destiny. It just made the testimony heavier with glory. You were never disqualified. You were being refined, humbled, sharpened, positioned. And while others may have walked away, God never did. He kept watch over the calling while you wandered. There's something sacred in being chosen by the one who already knows your flaws. It means you don't have to perform for grace. You don't have to outrun your past. You only have to agree with truth. And the truth is this: what God placed in you still lives, still breathes, still waits for your yes. Romans 11. 2 affirms, "For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable." Irrevocable. That means no failure scared it off. No silence disqualified it. No setback cancelled it. You may have buried it, but heaven never did. It's time to dig it back up. That buried dream, that dormant assignment, that silenced voice. It's time to breathe on what you thought was dead. Because God didn't change his mind when you gave up. He preserved it until you were ready to remember. You'll realize now that your detours weren't wasted. They became classrooms. Your delay became discernment. The pain you thought disqualified, you actually deepened your authority. There are things you can now minister to that you once could only survive. That is the sign of a true calling. It grows while hidden. It matures under pressure. You don't need a public stage to be anointed. The cave is where kings are trained. The wilderness is where prophets are refined. You've been in hiding, but you've also been in preparation. And that preparation is not lost. It's accumulated, waiting to be activated. There are people waiting for what you carry. Not your perfection, your process, your realness, your scars, your insight born through fire. There are hearts that won't heal until your voice speaks. There are cycles that won't break until your feet step into their region. This is why the enemy has been so relentless. He wasn't just after you, he was after your impact. But here you are, still standing, still chosen. And if the calling was fragile, it would have died under the weight you carried. But it didn't. It lived, quietly, faithfully, hidden in the folds of your spirit, waiting for the moment you remembered. That moment is now. You're not picking up an old dream, you're stepping into a matured mantle. The assignment didn't age, it deepened. And you're more prepared than you think. Not because you have it all figured out, but because you've been emptied of the things that used to hold you back. You now know how to discern real from fake. You've learned who to walk with and who to walk past. You've seen what happens when you delay, and you've decided it's not worth it. That is spiritual maturity. That is weight in the spirit. And that is why the assignment has been reactivated. Don't wait for more confirmation. You're living in it. Don't ask for more signs. You're walking in one. The presence you feel right now, the clarity rising in your spirit, it's all proof that the mantle never lifted. It just waited for your heart to come home. You are not too late. You are right on time for what heaven has appointed now. The pressure you feel right now is not imagined. It's not circumstantial. It's spiritual. And it's not random. It's a final attempt. A desperate push from an enemy who knows his time is up. You've come too far, seen too much, and risen from too many dead places to be vulnerable to the same old tricks. But the enemy isn't trying to trap the old you. He's trying to reach the new one, the awakened one, the one who now recognizes patterns, the one who no longer confuses attack with identity. And because he can't kill the calling, he's trying to convince you to forfeit it. This is why the thoughts are louder than usual, why the temptation is more subtle, why the voices of accusation suddenly seem more convincing. The goal isn't just sin, it's sabotage. To get you to abort your assignment right before it manifests. You've probably noticed the pattern. Just before breakthrough, confusion increases, doubt tightens, people shift, restlessness grows, doors close that once looked promising. Things begin to swirl, not because you're wrong, but because you're right on schedule. This is how the enemy behaves when he knows heaven is about to release something major. Don't mistake disruption for failure. This pressure is evidence. You are at the threshold. The enemy tried everything. He touched relationships, finances, your mind, your emotions. He whispered lies in the night, hoping you'd confuse exhaustion with truth. He threw distractions wrapped in good intentions. He tempted you to settle, not with blatant evil, but with comfort. That's always the last tactic. Get you to trade your crown for calm. But crowns are not given in calm. They're forged in fire. And now the fire is here. Not to consume you, but to reveal what's pure. You've been tested, refined, pushed, and pulled. Not because you're weak, but because you're worthy of carrying weight. The kind of spiritual weight that shifts atmospheres, that breaks generational cycles, that makes principalities nervous. You're a threat, and this final attempt is a panic move. Don't give it your attention. Don't let it breathe. The same way you resisted all the previous traps, resist this one. Because this is the last before release, the last fog before clarity, the last storm before the sky splits open. The pressure is real, yes, but it's revealing something greater. You didn't break. You bent. You groaned. You even went silent. But you didn't quit. And that alone makes the enemy tremble. Because a chosen one who endures becomes unstoppable. Their prayers carry more fire. Their words become swords. Their presence carries weight. This is what you've become. The old triggers don't move you like before. The same attacks no longer land. That's not just growth, it's transformation. You're not reacting, you're discerning. You're not spiraling, you're anchoring. And that anchoring is why the storm is louder, because it's losing its grip. There is no going back. Not because you can't, but because you no longer want to. The places you once ran to for escape now feel too small. The cycles that once comforted you now feel like chains. The people who once defined you now feel distant, not because they changed, but because you outgrew the lie that you had to shrink to stay connected. You've outgrown the warfare that once trapped you, and now, the final blow is being attempted not to stop you, but to scare you into stopping yourself. But you won't, because now you see it. This isn't chaos. This is convergence. Everything is lining up, and the enemy is running out of tactics. He has nothing new, only louder versions of the old. But you are not who you were. You are not easily baited anymore. You're not swayed by flattery or crushed by rejection. Your roots have gone deep, and your discernment has grown sharp. That's why this is his last attempt. Heaven isn't worried. The angels aren't pacing. God hasn't altered the promise. What's coming is already in motion. What's been declared over you is already being prepared for manifestation. And the enemy knows it. So he throws everything. Noise, distraction, pressure, all to make you sit down just before the moment you were born for. Don't sit down. Don't pause. Don't surrender to weariness when you're only steps from the throne room of your next season. You've survived everything up to now. This last push won't take you out. It'll push you through. The angels are no longer in a posture of waiting. They now stand as witnesses, not of your breaking, but of your crowning. What once felt like an endless battle has shifted. This is no longer about survival. This is about coronation. You, chosen one, are stepping into the season where your royalty is no longer hidden. You are being marked, anointed, crowned in the Spirit. Heaven has always known who you are. Earth is about to catch up. You've been through the wilderness. You've walked through the fire. You've endured betrayal, loss, rejection, delay, and yet you kept going. Not because you were strong, but because grace refused to let you die in the middle. And now, grace is doing more than carrying you. It's crowning you. The angels that came to rescue are now standing in celebration, because what you've survived was not just personal, it was prophetic. You didn't just overcome for yourself. You overcame for those who will walk behind you. You became the pattern breaker, the curse cutter, the evidence of what heaven can do with a surrendered life. You may not see a physical crown, but in the spirit. It is real. It is glowing with oil that no man can manufacture. It is heavy with the weight of assignment. It is adorned with the authority of heaven, as we see in Revelation 3. Shri, hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. That warning is not about fear. It's about awareness. You carry something now that must be guarded, because the moment you are crowned, the level of your warfare changes, but so does your authority. This is why the battles increased. This is why the pressure intensified. The enemy knew you were close to coronation. But here you are, still standing, and heaven has responded by placing a crown on what once was chaos. You are not being rescued anymore. You are being released. This moment isn't about just overcoming sin. It's about stepping into spiritual rule, not to dominate people, but to govern atmosphere, to walk into rooms and shift environments, to speak and see chains break, to touch and feel healing flow. That is the power that rests on those who wear heaven's crown. And now, you're feeling it. The fire in your chest isn't anxiety, it's confirmation. The tears are not sorrow, they're oil. The stillness around you isn't silence, it's reverence. All of heaven is watching as a chosen one steps into their appointed season. You've worn labels. You've carried wounds. You've hidden your light, but not anymore. This is your unveiling. The angel beside you holds the scroll of your future, and it's no longer sealed. It's open, ready, activated. Your steps from here will not be ordinary. Favor will follow you, not because you are lucky, but because you are aligned. Doors will recognize you. People will respond to something they cannot explain. That is the mantle. That is the crown. And it is not light, it is weighty, because it carries responsibility. You will be called to rise when others sleep, to speak when others stay silent, to give when others withhold. That is the cost of the crown, but it is also the glory of the calling. Chosen one. This message is not just inspiration, it's documentation, a heavenly record that you crossed over. From almost to already, from waiting to walking, from broken to crowned. This word must not end with you. If it awakened your spirit, it will awaken someone else's. Share it, send it, release it. Let what God started in you spread like holy fire. Subscribe, not just to the channel, but to the rhythm of the Spirit. Stay connected to this prophetic flow. What begins today must be nurtured. This isn't the end, it's your unveiling. And if your spirit confirms this as your hour, your season, your alignment, then don't just receive, respond. Support this flow if you are led. Your gift doesn't purchase the anointing, it honors it. It places weight on what you've just received. It's an offering, not for a person, but for a divine moment. You are no longer hidden. You are crowned. Right. Crowned by God, a declaration in the open, yet rooted in the Spirit. These 3 words are not just a comment, they are a coronation cry. Let them echo what heaven has already announced. You are royal, chosen, and sent. There are certain moments in life that do not repeat themselves. You can revisit the memory. You can recall the feeling, but the moment itself, its weight, its timing, a divine positioning pass. Heaven does not operate on endless loops. It functions in windows, kairos moments, sacred intersections between time and eternity. And this, chosen one, is one of them. You've been brought to the edge of transformation. You've been pursued, risked with, awakened, instructed, delivered, and crowned. And now, the question that reverberates through the spirit realm is not, will you receive, but will you respond? Because the cost of delay is higher in this season than ever before. You have felt the tug of the Holy Spirit. You've heard the whisper of God in the quiet. You've sensed the angelic movement around you. But what happens next is not determined by presence, It's determined by participation. Spiritual passivity has a cost, and it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it just looks like slowly drifting, like growing cold gradually, without noticing, like becoming so accustomed to the stirring of God that you stop realizing it's Him. The most dangerous place for a chosen one is not rebellion, it's complacency. Because rebellion wakes you up, it confronts you, it forces decision. But complacency, it lulls, it numbs, it makes you think you're still walking when you've already sat down in the Spirit. And that is what this section is meant to disrupt. You cannot unknow what has been revealed. You cannot unsee what heaven has shown you. You cannot return to the silence without consequence. Because this moment has marked you, there is a weight that rests on those who receive revelation. The weight of responsibility, not to be perfect, but to respond. James 4:17 reminds us, if anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. That's not condemnation. It's clarity. When God opens your eyes, He expects your steps to follow. You prayed for direction. You've asked for signs. You've begged for clarity. And now that it's come, don't let fear dress itself as wisdom. Don't call procrastination processing. Don't mask hesitation as caution. Your spirit knows the difference. It's time your actions reflect that knowledge. Because the truth is, mercy is a window, not a wall. It gives time. It doesn't grant endless delay. And when that window closes, it doesn't slam with a sound. It closes quietly, slowly, almost unnoticeably, until one day you realize the fire has cooled, and the voice that once stirred your soul now feels distant. That's the cost of delay. God doesn't stop loving you, but His timing moves on. Assignments are not paused indefinitely. Territories must still be reached. Chains still need breaking. And if the one originally assigned won't respond, heaven finds another. You were not chosen randomly. You were appointed. And that appointment still stands, but for it to be fulfilled, your yes must become motion. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. What comes next requires obedience. It requires steps of faith that may not make sense to your mind, but will be confirmed by peace in your spirit. And those steps won't always be dramatic. Some will be quiet, letting go of a habit, cutting off a conversation, writing down a dream again. The enemy wants you to think that your yes has to be loud to be real. But in heaven, even a whisper of obedience can shake the earth. You've reached the final layer of this moment, the threshold between knowing and doing, between hearing and walking, between revelation and response. There are no more signs coming, no more confirmations needed. Everything you've experienced, every tremble in your chest, every tear, every word has been a part of heaven's process to align you with your moment. This is that moment. What you choose to do next will echo, not in the noise of the world, but in the timeline of your destiny, because this is the type of moment that generations remember, not because of its visibility, but because of its impact. You are being handed the opportunity to step forward fully, to silence hesitation, to choose purpose over delay, to declare with action, I will not miss what was made for me. And heaven is watching, not in judgment, but in readiness, because when you step, the angels move with you. You were brought here to decide. You are now standing in the center of a decision that will shape everything that follows. This is not just about your emotions or your environment, it's about your alignment. all the warfare you've endured, all the divine visitations you've experienced, every whisper from heaven, every silence that carried weight, every time you thought you couldn't go further but somehow still did, it was all leading to this. Not to a spotlight, not to applause, but to a moment of divine commissioning. You have crossed the valley. You've walked through the flame. You've resisted the temptation to settle. You have looked fear in the face and kept walking. You've battled the storm in your mind, and you've surrendered under the weight of God's voice. That is why you are here now, not as a survivor, but as one who is about to be sent. There's a difference between being saved and being sent. One rescues you from darkness. The other launches you into destiny. Most never cross this threshold. They stay near the safety of deliverance, but never step into the authority of purpose. But you, chosen one, are being sent. This means things must change. In you, around you, through you. The way you move, the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you walk into rooms. You are no longer the same. Not because of effort, but because of encounter. The moment God sends someone, the heavens record it. It becomes a divine marking in the spirit realm. The enemy knows it. The angels protect it. Creation begins to align with it. And everything that tried to delay you suddenly begins to bow to the timing of God. But this is not a moment of comfort. It is a moment of commissioning, and that means it carries weight. It means it demands your yes again and again, not just in word, but in obedience. This journey won't be easy, but it will be anointed. You'll find that things you once tolerated will now grieve your spirit. Places you once fit in will feel foreign. Conversations you once engaged in will now feel like noise. That's not you being arrogant, that's you being sent. To be sent is to walk with eyes fixed on purpose. It's to speak with clarity, to discern distractions quickly, to protect your peace as a matter of obedience, not preference. Being sent means your steps are no longer casual. They are calculated by heaven. Even your pauses have purpose. Even your silence holds authority. You don't have to announce this shift. Those in the spirit will see it. And those who can't were never meant to follow you there. Jesus was sent. Paul was sent. Esther was sent. Elijah was sent. None of them were ready. But all of them were willing, and that willingness changed history. You will not be the same from here on. You can't be. Heaven has sealed this shift. The word over your life has matured. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were always meant to disrupt darkness. And this commissioning is heaven's confirmation that your wilderness is over. Your chains are broken. Your spirit is aligned. And your name is known, not just in the earth, but in heaven. God says, I'm sending you into families, into regions, into industries, into atmospheres. Carry what I've placed in you. You're not going to have to chase platforms. You'll carry presence, and presence draws what platforms never could. You are not stepping forward alone. The same angels that rescued, delivered, revealed, and crowned are still at your side. They don't leave now. They war with you. They walk ahead of you. They guard what you carry. Because it's not just a word anymore, it's a mission. You are sent. You've just walked through a divine encounter, not with a person, not with a video, but with heaven itself. This wasn't content. This was confirmation. From the first word to the final line, something in your spirit knew, this is for me. The angels were sent. The window was real. and your soul responded. Now, let the shift continue beyond this moment. Don't let the flame flicker out. If this word found you, fed you, or freed something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Someone in your world is quietly suffocating under the same weight you just shook off. Be the voice that points them to their own rescue. Subscribe if this isn't the first time your spirit has burned while watching. That's not a pattern. That's a prophetic connection. Stay in the flow. More is coming, and you're not meant to miss it. If this message stirred you, consider sowing into the word. Not because you're obligated, not to earn a blessing, but to honor what heaven poured into you. Giving doesn't buy breakthrough, it seals belief. It says, "This ground is holy, and I choose to plant here." And when your spirit is ready, write something simple below. Maybe it's, "I receive this." Maybe it's "Still chosen." Whatever the words, let them echo back to heaven that you heard, that you're aligned, that you won't go back. Because this isn't just the end of a video, this is the start of a new you, and heaven is watching.